only about carbon, but it's also about air quality. It's about public health. It's about transportation. It's about inclusive workforce development. It's about inclusive economic development, so that we're making sure that all the underserved communities in Sacramento are not left behind in this clean energy transition. So, and one of the promises that we made, to the Sacramento region is that we understand how important it is to maintain reliability. So I think you just, during just the last weekend, we were talking about, as Gary and Thomas were talking about just before the call today, about how, the wildfire in Oregon has impacted California's ability to serve. And we had to call emergencies, right? In terms of, you have heard the CAISO talking about the energy emergency alert to level 3 last Friday and this weekend to make sure that we have enough power to serve load during the hottest time on this heat wave. So, and then the other piece that we want to make sure that we understand is that we also want to make sure that we keep our rate increases, capped at about inflation. Is really where we know, it's a promise that we're making to the Sacramento region. That so it's not just about climate, but it's also about air quality. It's about public health. It's about economic development. It's about workforce development. But then it's also about maintaining our reliability and keeping the rates affordable. So that's very important to us. Next slide, please. So after 6 months, we have a team of 120 people, industry experts, consultants, SMUD staff, to develop a 144-page zero carbon plan. This is a plan, a flexible plan to show how SMUD can get to absolute zero by 2030. This is an ambitious plan for sure. Now there's 4 areas that we focus on in terms of how to get there. So the first, as a lot of you know, Sacramento, we have 5 gas-fired plants that emits about 2 million metric tons of carbon. And so what we did is that we kind of took a look at, what would take if we wanted to commission those plants. And it looked like early reliability studies show that we can retire those two of those plants in probably a couple of the more economic disadvantaged communities by 2024 to 2025. We're going to repurpose 2 of the 5 plants into peakers, and then a consumers power plant, which is our biggest plant that we probably still need it for baseload, but we can convert all those 3 plants into clean fuel. Either, it may be a transitional fuel, renewable natural gas, but ultimately we want to get to using green hydrogen as a way to power those plants. And that's what our goal is. Now, also, we look at the proven technology that we have. So, United States and the world has made great advancements in both utility scale solar, wind, geothermal, hydro, biomass, short duration battery storage, and demand response. So we think by looking at what we currently can do, we think we can get about 90% of the way there. But that means we would have to increase our renewable energy purchases and construction, especially local solar, utility scale solar, about 3.5 times what it is today. So this is a combination of going with utility scale solar, utility scale storage, geothermal, wind, small hydros, and also the things that for new technology that's coming, which is the other piece. That's why I think clean start innovation is so important, because the last 10%, we don't know exactly how we're going to get there. So certainly there has been a lot of money and a lot of efforts been put in on a global basis. I think there's billions of dollars as investment every single year looking at new technology, new business models, such as you heard a lot, rooftop solar plus storage at the house that could provide great reliability. You heard about how the new Ford F-150 truck has probably a 90 kilowatt hour battery that you can plug into your house and power your house for 3 days, right? If there's power outage, and you can actually provide those services to the grid when the grid really needs it. So certainly, if you think about what's happening in California, you heard the governor's goal about getting 5 million electric vehicles, right, installed, get deployed in California by 2030. And so our share of that is about 250,000 electric vehicles that will require about, I'm going to say 60,000 electric vehicle chargers that we need to do. And so there's also new technologies such as hydrogen, such as methane, right? Such as some of the long duration flow batteries, compressed air storage. So SMUD, we're going to partner with the DOE, CEC, private industries, vendors, and manufacturers to see what are the new technologies that we need to deploy in the Sacramento region. We want them to come to Sacramento, invest in Sacramento, and work with us so we can make this transition. And so, and the next, obviously, since I said we can't get there, the last 10% is the flexible piece. So we are going to invest quite a bit of money in terms of working with our customers to do solar and storage. We just dropped the rate, proposing that we're going to give incentives up to $2,500 for customers to put in rooftop solar and batteries and allow us to actually use that as a grid services piece. And we're heavily investing right now on vehicle to grid. I mean, we're doing a lot of fleet charging. We're working with the school districts to see now how you can actually make the transition, and how do you make the transition from gasoline to electric, but then also use those to support the grid. And we're going to start with both the light duty vehicles and medium heavy duty vehicles. So that's another big thing. And together, it's going to be about a $4.7 billion investment that we're committing to in the next decade to get us there. And the other big piece that if you think about carbon and carbon reduction, you cannot not talk about building and transportation electrification, because just a point of reference, Sacramento, right, our 5 gas-fired plants emits about 2 million metric tons of carbon. The building and transportation sector emits about 8 million metric tons, about 4 times what we emit. And that's not counting about the air quality issues, the tailpipe emissions. And if you think about, if you go to an induction cooking inside a house, is better for the indoor air quality, it's better for safety, it's better for actually also, it reduces your operation costs. So we're extremely excited about this plan. The plan, you can go to SMUD website to download I think it's a 22-page executive summary, or you can actually get the full details plan. That's 144 pages on the SMUD website. And then, as I said earlier, we're very, very cognizant. We're kind of rolling out of a COVID. A lot of our customers are hurting. We have a lot of customers on payment plans and a lot of customers that really has not paid SMUD since last March. And so we are very, very cognizant of them, so that we want to make sure that we want to continue to make sure our rates is affordable. And so we have dropped a rate proposal to the board that we will not increase our rate by more than 1.5% at 2022 and only 2% at 2023, which is way under the forecasted inflation that you have right now. Something very important to us. Next slide, please. Okay. So one of the things that we want to make sure that small business, in terms of being a part of it, you got to remember, right? This is an important, exciting 9-year journey. And I see organizations such as Clean Start and your members as important partners. Now, there's several ways small business can engage with SMUD as we head down this zero carbon road in a zero emissions vehicle, of course. Now, the first is to sign up for our SEED small business incentive programs, if you haven't done that already. So our SEED stands for Supplier Education Economic Development, and the programs gives preference in contracting opportunities to certify small businesses. And the SMUD board established a target that says 20% of our contracting business go to SEED qualified small business. Now, as of 2020, even though it was tough in many ways, 24% or more than 75 million in contracts was awarded to SEED businesses. And you can also register online to be notified of contracting opportunities. You see the relevant web, email, and phone details on the slide. And we encourage you to stay in the loop by signing up to receive notifications at cleanpowercity.org. And we'll let you know when the board is discussing the zero carbon plan. We have had customers and other interested stakeholders send us input and great ideas for decarbonizing our power supply. And we encourage you to be part of this conversation. So, in closing, I would like to offer a more personal take on what we're doing. I think it really helps to put a human face on what we're trying to achieve. I think, as you heard from Thomas earlier, I have 3 kids. They're adult kids, and we obviously want the best for all of them. But what excites me the most is that in my nearly 40 years of working at SMUD, this is the first time my kids has been genuinely interested in what the dad is doing at work. In fact, they thought it's actually pretty cool. So I wish they would have been interested before, but it's better late than never. I think the notions of zero carbon is exciting to them because they really can imagine the difference it will make in their lives and the life of future generations. I can tell you, younger people are worried about climate change, and they're really desperate for us to do something about it before we reach the point of no return. And with our community support and with support of entrepreneurs who are masters at finding new answers to old questions, we're going to make the most of this once in a generation opportunity. And I can just tell you, we are so excited. I mean, in partnerships, even like the California Mobility Center, right? That we're bringing public-private partnership investment into the Sacramento region by partnering, with Sac State, Los Rios, UC Davis, GSAC, Greater Sacramento Economic Council, right? Private equity firms, Prem Motion, I think, which was one of the sponsors that we were able to bring in town from Aachen, Germany, right, to establish their American headquarters here. So I think this is exciting times for the Sacramento region. I think Sacramento is absolutely poised to be a national, if not international leader, to show the world how we can battle climate change in a way that impacts all the things that matters to our community, right? From air quality, from public health, from transportation, to inclusive workforce development, inclusive economic development, right? And do it in a way that everyone comes along for this journey and no community is left behind. So I think that's my 10-minute quick introduction to the plan. I really encourage everyone to look at the plan. And the only one other thing I want to add is that we're super excited about President Biden's infrastructure plan, that $1.3 trillion that he's proposing. A good chunk of it has to do with building and transportation electrification, how to accelerate that. And the other piece is really about how to do clean energy and all the technology that you need to move the power sector along. And we're extremely looking forward. In fact, we want to be first in line with projects that hopefully we develop with some of your partners that, when those funds becomes available, we're at DC, getting that funds together and bringing those money and those technologies that's needed into the Sacramento region. So with that, I will turn the floor back over to Gary and Thomas, and maybe to answer any questions that you have.
Well, I mean, this is very inspirational, and I mean, SMUD should be commended for taking a step like this, particularly because you are making a bet on innovation. There's 10% of your plan, which really you don't know how to get there. And we want to all help you fill that 10% as well as the 90%. So I know that we've been talking with SMUD and Startup SAC about doing a showcase for you of some of the companies we have in the area so that your staff understands some of the benefits they can bring. Everything from, better heat reflecting shades on windows to putting wind machines in the towers you already have to harvest some of the lower to ground wind to a whole lot of people that are working on storage. But I think one of the connections we would really like to establish with SMUD for the clean tech community is, we need to hear feedback from you. If this isn't the product you want, what's one that you would like? Because we've got some incredibly talented people that can go forward out there. So we look forward to having this routine episodes of a showcase, put companies in front, and we make people aware of that. Then we can take advantage of the seed program and other things. But from our point of view, some of it is just education. People don't know all the innovation we have. We appreciate your opening the door to that. So we've got a lot of questions here, and I've been writing down things as fast as I could. Big part of the innovation in Sacramento, what you're trying to do, is the transportation sector. Just exactly what you mentioned there. We're not particularly that far ahead of the total fleet, registered cars in Sacramento being converted to electric. I know the SMUD truck fleet is getting towards 100%. Do you see any low-hanging fruit, anything particularly that you'd like to see happen in electric vehicles, and what can go on there?
I think as Gary that's a great question. I think what it is that I think on the light duty vehicles, I think technology has gotten to a point that is ready for mass rollout. I mean, you've already seen that happening. Now, one of the challenges for medium and heavy duty type vehicles that we have And so we are certainly partnering like with the school districts, right? In terms of, and we're partnering with new companies like Zeus that
Right.
would build the next generation of electric vehicles, medium heavy duty, that is going to be needed by the industry to do this conversion. So what I would encourage, your membership to do is, you have anything to do with e-mobility, right? From new business models like charging as a service or fleet as a service, or new ways to manage really even the charging itself. So you think about, each of those electric vehicles, right? I mean, they basically, it's like a little miniature power plant that you're charging, hopefully when you have overabundance of renewables in the system, right? Or when, at night. And so in a way, you can start thinking about, what are all the things that you need to do to manage that charging, the managed charging piece from a business model perspective, or from a process perspective and a software technology perspective, in addition to the hardware that's needed. So there's going to be a tremendous amount of things that you can do in terms of how do you crack this managed charging. Because if you think about each one of those things takes about 5-6 kW, which is like double the load of the house. So if you can actually have a way to really work with the customers so that they charge their vehicles when you have an overabundance of renewables on the systems, and discharge it when the grid is in need of those, like when the sun goes down, and now that you're going to need less gas-fired plants ramping up to meet the load, or even just having customer change behaviors to match, that's suitable to the lifestyle, that matches the I guess the characteristics of renewable generations to how you load, how the load's being done. So I think it's the first time, in utility history, that utilities are really looking at the whole expansion from things that are happening, what we call beyond the meter, all those technologies happening beyond the meter at the customer site, how it's impacted the distribution system itself, how it impacts the transmission system, how it impacts the generation, how it impacts the power market itself. And so there's tremendous amount of opportunities, for entrepreneurs to learn how to unlock the value chain and the financing models, the business models in terms of getting those things implemented, to the technology piece, to the software piece, to the infrastructure piece that you need. So I really believe that's really where a lot of the challenges are. And if you listen to what's happening nationally and internationally, you heard about Secretary Granholm from DOE talking about the amount of investments DOE is going to invest in really, really making, transportation electrification a major hub, a major foundation for us to get to a clean energy future. Because electric vehicles is both a load and a generator at the same time. And if you can actually learn how to balance that and more importantly, co-invest that with the customer. So think about, the Ford F-150. If you have thousands or, tens of thousands of those on your grid that, that you can plug in to charge when you have over capacity from renewable generation, to discharging it when the grid really needs it. So you can think about how that whole dynamics would change and how the partnership that you can create. And so that's why I told the board, and I told Congress too, that the customer and the community have to be part of the solution. The utilities can't do it alone. We can't, just count on new technologies on the generation side of it to get us out of this, or built transmission to get us out of this. The customer has to be part of that solution.
Well, that's very encouraging news. And people have been working on the vehicle to grid problem for some time. And, really, if SMUD would focus on that as an opportunity, I think that could really crack the nut, because there's some clever engineering that needs to be done, but there's other stuff that's going on. But we also have an enormous opportunity still, particularly in some of our overlooked communities, for energy efficiency. And I think there are many of us in the community trying to figure out how we deliver on that. But I think there's still a lot of low-hanging fruit there with simple investments that just have not been made. But a lot of it's rental property, so it's a hard one to figure out who you really go to on that. Do you have any thoughts on dealing in the overlooked neighborhoods and the rental property, about what SMUD would like to see?
Yeah, Gary. I think that's really why SMUD, we created the whole sustainable community initiatives, to really start working with the community-based organizations, right? With faith, for really working with organizations that really kind of understand the pulse and the challenges on those underserved communities, or who lacks the investments, right, to really the capital to do the investment for energy efficiency that will give them long-term, I'm going to say bill relief, right? Because overall, it's not only just good for the resource itself, but it's also good for the customer. But a lot of times it's very, very hard to find out with to get the capital up front. So we are looking at, kind of creative financing in terms of loans, in terms of working with the CBOs, how do we get the word out to the communities? And this is really where we're banking on, partnering with the city, counties, right? And also with the CBOs and with even the faith organizations. And then with I'm going to say venture capitalists piece. I mean, one of the things that, for example, very, very recent example that Fiona Marr, Treasurer Fiona Marr came to us and, with a private firm called Giddy Up EV, that they were looking at, how to install and bring DC fast chargers and basically e-mobility hubs right to the Sacramento area. And we said, well, when you think about that, you should really kind of marry multiple objectives. You should think about where's the best place to put that, DC fast charging the intermodal hub in a way that would allow more usage of that, but also in a way that serve disadvantaged communities. And so we actually picked a location that's RT in the Power in the Ramona Center, which is in the Promise Zone, to be the first that mobility, the hub that we actually building. And make a long story short, in 4 short months, we're able to get the private investor to come in to work with RT and SMUD and put a charging hub, a DC fast charging hub that has DC fast charging, level 2, level 1 charging, along with e-bikes and those I'm going to say the scooters, the e-scooters, in a way that that kind of matches with what RT is doing from their shuttle, to really kind of solve multiple problems at once. So that's really what we're doing. So I think, Gary, I mean, to answer your questions, I don't have all the answers. I'm counting on organizations like yours, like Adrian's out of Valley Vision, and a lot of places that that are working with those problems, right? In terms of looking at, and then also even working with Alberto Ayala, from the Air Quality Management District, to start really bringing all the resource to bear about the problem we're trying to solve, align our resources for maximum impact, but more importantly, is getting those entrepreneurs, those new ideas out in front of venture capitalists, the private equity funds. That's becoming more and more available. So I think that's why I said I think the Power in Ramona Center, charging hub, DC fast charging hub, was a good example that we're able to kind of present a problem we're trying to solve, right? But then align the resources from air qualities, RT, us, private equity, what the state is trying to achieve, and then pull those resources together and start putting demonstration models out there, a new business model out there for the people to see. And so if that works, that will replicate that all through Sacramento region, but more importantly, it will replicate across the state. And obviously from the VC side, they're hoping that business model will be replicating across the whole U.S. So it's a win-win situation.
Yeah, I mean, you've triggered several things there. First of all, you may not know it, but we have battery manufacturers right here in the area. One of them with fast charging, and looking for some good sites there.
Yep.
I'm sure we want to put them in front of you. Have a number of other people with creative ideas on building energy management. So there's just a lot going on here, but I'm it's going to take some education and some time. Make sure we're all making all these connections.
Yeah,
we had a number of other people make comments. Go ahead, Paul.
Yes. So one of the things I want to make sure your membership hears about is that we'll be publishing, right? I mean, all the funding opportunities that's coming from DOE when we're working with them. And so it's actually very imperative for you to reach out to us, or vice versa. I mean, we'll make sure we have venues available for your membership to start looking at those new ideas that you have and how does it apply to advancing the national agenda and SMUD's vision. And so we can create that partnership that we can even go to lobby DC together, right? To influence how even some of those fundings are being crafted, how those requests for funding and the criteria for evaluation, how those are being, how they're being structured before they even issue the RFP and RFI out, so that would put SMUD and would put your constituents and your members in a way that that would give us the biggest chance for success when we try to acquire those new funding. So I'm extremely excited to have my team work with your membership. And please reach out to us if you have, technologies or companies, or if your company have new ways to advance what we want to do from I'm going to say the plant side, right? Utility scale side to even on the commercial side, on our commercial customers. And if you want to install things out in the community, in our facilities, we want to make sure that we have a chance to kind of work that through with you, at least to give you the best advice that we have. And does it make sense for us to move forward together?
It makes total sense. And 12 years ago, we worked with Congresswoman Matsui. I don't remember the exact figure, but I think it was $300 million when this was a priority before, during the Obama administration. And, all of that really went to good use here. So replicating that would be high on our agenda, and we'll
Yeah,
stand there
Gary,
with you.
that's absolutely true. In fact, I had a press conference with Congresswoman Matsui last week that she's trying to get the Trees Act, adopted on a national level, which is putting in shade trees, right? Disadvantaged
Yeah,
communities and communities as
yeah,
a whole. And so she was instrumental for those of you who remember back in 2008 when we to what we call the last Great Recession. The local economy was really hurting. So SMUD, built a coalition with customers, with the state, the county, the city, and really went to DC to say, you can really help the Sacramento region to advance, the smart grid, right, to get us ready for the future. And as Gary said, SMUD and the Sacramento region receive $127 million out of the $308 million project that we proposed to DOE, which was 60% of the money given to California. And on top of that, they gave us another 40 million to do research and development in that area for a total of about $168 million for a $300 million project that we have. So, which is pretty phenomenal. So, in fact, we've been in contact with the assistant secretary who gave SMUD that money back in 2009. And she's really, in fact, she's meeting us now that we can travel. I mean, we're planning to go to DC together. I mean, us and some of our partners to go to DC together and start really kind of meeting with staff and start kind of laying out the things that would be helpful for DOE to consider, to use Sacramento as an example, right? Working as a partner to advance getting the power sector to zero carbon by 2030, which certainly would help for them to achieve President Biden's plan to get to zero carbon for the power sector by 2035.
Well, we want to be a shining example, and believe me, we'll stand with you to try to get, as they say, our unfair share of whatever support is available. But we've got a good track record of
Yes.
delivering on those promises. So, I mean, we've talked a lot about early stage companies, and there is a tension between speed, go with the known companies that aren't necessarily based in Sacramento, but get you to your goal, versus nurturing those locally, which can become part of building that sustainable business sector here. Are there things that you're looking for to help favor the demonstration projects with earlier stage companies and dealing with local companies preferentially?
Yes, in fact, that's one of the conversations that we had with the California Mobility Center and with Anatech Capital, some of the private equity firms, is that, what is the best way to structure funding available, right? I mean, certainly the needs of a startup is very different, from the needs of somebody who's in stage 3, stage 4 of, going out, getting ready for IPO, right? Which is very different. I mean, in terms of the different funding levels. So we are looking at, is there a way we can create funding for early startups, and what would that look like? So we are actually talking to VCs and also talking, in terms of a DOE about what will something like that look like. So let me back up a little bit. So anything that you need, in the beginning, that you always need funding, right, for innovation. And so the earlier we can put the funders and the people who's putting this together, the better will be. But then what we also want to add on top of that is really about now adding the additional support from DOE. If this aligns what DOE is trying to accomplish, it really does give the VCs a lot more confident about really what area they want to invest in. And so we want to make sure that Sacramento is on the map, and people, if first of all, if they're local, that's great. And if they're not local, we want them to move here to be part of that solution. So yes, we are looking at how do you best craft and get funding to attract small startups. But and then certainly we want to talk about, is there I'm going to tell you, we do have a preference for them to be local, just like our seed vendors, right? We prefer them to be local, and if they are not local, then we really want to encourage them to move, them to be local here.
Well, that's great news, and we really appreciate that support. Are you looking at utility scale storage projects, for example, as part of the plan for 2030?
Yes, we are. In fact, I think we're going to put in like over 100 megawatts of utility scale storage, and a lot of it, what you're seeing already, that's happening in the industry, is that a lot of the new solar, utility scale solar, that they're putting on is already they're already proposing to put utility scale battery right next to it. But we're also doing something that is very creative, Gary. I'm glad you brought that up. SMUD has I think the only program in the U.S. called Storage Share, is that we are partnering with our customers like Electrify America. So when they put in DC fast chargers, obviously they're looking for the cheapest way for them to do it. And one of the ways to do it is put in batteries for rate arbitrage, for demand arbitrage. So we said, well, when we look at our grid and where they're putting in the charging stations, we said, well, we have excess capacity here and where you're putting it in. So why don't you co-invest with SMUD to put that battery somewhere else where it creates a better, a better value proposition for our customers, and we can share that benefit. And so we launched it, and Electrify America is our first customer that bought into a 4 megawatt storage that we're putting in the hedge substations, that we are learning how to do workforce development, how to do maintenance, and learning how to now start actually putting those for utility scale applications, but at a learning way. So that way, this is a win-win. So Electrify America got what they needed from a rate arbitrage perspective, and they don't have to worry about managing all the whole pieces about how the battery is going to work at their site. So they basically have a battery from a rate perspective. We get a 4 megawatt battery at a location that is going to provide a tremendous amount of benefit. So that's a win-win, and that's precisely the thing that we're looking for from your membership, is that if they have ideas like that, we want to make sure we hear about it, and we want to make sure they're part of that, that proposal when we create things like that.
Well, you're going to hear a very loud chorus from the clean tech community here to tell you about some things they have in mind, and to make other suggestions. I mean, even out into fintech, I mean, ways of owning things and paying for them that just make it easier. And certainly solar shares and the storage share has been among the things that you've tried there. Well, there's been a lot of commentary going on. I've tried to pick up a lot of the questions, but boy, everybody is really excited and really interested. We want to thank you so much for taking the time today, Paul. I know your schedule's very busy, but this kind of innovation-friendly talk is rare in the utility community, and we so much appreciate having SMUD here and being a partner to make Sacramento a much bigger clean tech hub and a center of innovation in all of this that's going on.
So Gary, one of the things, before we leave this call, I want to make sure that we're committing that SMUD, we will work very closely with Clean Start, to make sure that what we're planning on doing is well broadcasted out, to your membership. And we may actually set up, I'm going to say, informational meetings to highlight really what the high area opportunities that we're looking at, come right off the block, and then also matching really what the funding that's available, federal, state, and local level, to making sure that your membership have those information, and then what area opportunities that we think that we all need to work on together, like coming off the block. And we're looking forward to making sure that information get out to your team and your membership.
From the horse's mouth, exactly what we want to hear, and we'll be there for you. The community
I'm counting on it, Gary. I mean, I'm really counting on making sure that you guys are a part of that solution.
Well, I really appreciate that. All right, Thomas, let's turn it back to you. And for everybody that's out there, if there are other comments you have, and by the way, this thing is recorded. If you know somebody that you really should be learning all of this, we've got our YouTube channel. Make sure other people have tied into this, and we'll be of course, promoting the summary and the video of today, as we do on all our perspectives events. But this has been absolutely fantastic. Round of applause for Paul and everything that's
Thank you.
going on at SMUD.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Just terrific. Thomas?
Thank you very much, Gary. Thank you very much, Paul. I want to encourage everyone to check out the SMUD board meetings, their committee meetings, and a lot of the links that we put in the chat there. One thing that I can consistently say about SMUD and their employees is they're overly eager to make sure that you're connecting with the people that you want. So much so that it's almost to a fault sometimes, but it makes it a whole lot easier. I thank everyone for attending. Make sure you check out Lacey tomorrow. That's Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. Connect with us on LinkedIn and Empower Innovation Networks, our YouTube channel, constantly putting out content there. And we look forward to having more of these in the future with more of SMUD. I also want to thank our overall program sponsors, Hacker Lab, where I'm located here, Reverent, Greenberg Tarig, and Momentum. And with that, thank everyone for coming and allow you guys to get on with the rest of the day. Have a good afternoon.
Thank you so much again. It's
All
great
right,
seeing
Paul.
everyone.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.